Hey everyone, welcome to my Adobe Animate CC basic starter tips and advice video. Okay, when you first open up Adobe Animate, you may get this window pop up, but if you don't, you can just go up to File and click New. You'll just get your basic settings here. For now, I'll just stick to the HD, standard HD here. You can go Full HD or 4K, but just for starters, I'll stick to the standard HD. You can actually change your resolution over here anyway, and your frame rate down here. You have your Action Script 3 here. In Adobe Flash, you actually have more options there. But for starting out, it's not really necessary to know what this is. Just know that it's a programming language that you can use later on down the line. Okay, let's create. Okay, and then when it loads up, it's your standard basic starting window. Up the top, you'll notice you have your timeline. On the left, you have your tools. On the right, you have your library, properties, color selection, align, your color swatches, and your assets. When you're starting out, if you don't know where the timeline is, or your tool menu, or your properties, you can always move any of these things wherever you want. Or you can move your timeline down below if you want, like that, if that's more to your liking. I like to keep it at the top, but that's just because I've been using Flash for a long time. If you go to the properties menu over the side here, you'll have your basic stage options, so you can actually change the pixels from in here. So if you're working on something and you end up wanting to change your screen resolution, you can just do it simply from here. So for example, I can change the width to 1000. With the lock on, it'll actually lock your width and height together. So if I change this, it'll change the height as well as the width. So don't worry if you're working on something simple and you just want to change the screen at any point. It's just over here, you can just do that very easily. Your frame rate is over here. You can change this. On the older versions of Flash, I think the starting frame rate was 15, so if you're using an older version of Flash, you're going to want to change that. I'm not too sure if it's over here, the setting, or I remember it is up here though. There is the frame rate section up here. So if you're coming to Adobe Animate from Flash, you can change your frame rate from the properties section up here, and then go to frame rate there. First really important tip here is just learn the shortcuts for the tools. You pick up how the tools work as you go along, but the shortcuts for the tools are really handy and they'll save you tons of time in the long run. If you hover your mouse over the icons over here, you'll actually get the tool shortcut in the brackets on the description here. So selection tool is V, the free transform tool is Q, brush tool is B, rectangle tool is R, so on and so forth. If you click the three dots here, you'll get extra tools, and the same goes for that. If you want to bring any of these extra tools onto this menu here, you can just click and drag. It's fairly simple, but I would recommend just having them here for reference of where the tool shortcuts are. Also, if you're coming here from Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop, you may want to edit the shortcuts. Some of the shortcuts are different from what you might expect from Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop or what have you. So if you just click on the edit section up here, you can go to keyboard shortcuts, click on that, and you'll get a list of the shortcuts here. So for example, I like to change my redo option to Control-Shift-Z, like it is in Adobe Illustrator. So you just come down to here, edit, go down, find redo, which I already had selected. Click once on this little box here, and then press the command on your keyboard to get that thing. You'll see it pop up down here. The shortcut Control-Shift-Z was already used for the command transform, remove transform. So if I want to find that and then change that to what redo was before, you can do that simply by just clicking the go to conflict. And that'll take you to where the conflict is. When you're done, just simply press OK, and that'll save the settings you put in. And if you ever want to reset back to the standard, or you want to save your current shortcuts, just open up the keyboard shortcuts again from the edit keyboard shortcuts at the bottom here. At the top you'll have custom if you've changed it, or you'll have the standard. But you can go to default, you can select the default here. But if you want to save your selection, just go over to here to the right, click save. Then you have an option for a name. Okay, the next major tip is save backups of your work. I recommend turning on autosaves, but don't rely on them. Autosaves can really save you if your computer crashes or Adobe Animate just crashes for whatever reason. but it can also override some of your work that you might not have wanted to save. So get into the habit of saving your work a lot, and also just get into the habit of using the Control S function. Unless you're working on big projects, saving your work all the time shouldn't really slow you down at all. And also, make copies of your save or rename your save as you go along. So for example, I just saved this document as tutorial-1-01. As I'm going along, as I'm editing something, just adding like changing things, moving things around. You can just do Control S, save your project. Then if you're doing something, you want to make a copy, or you've been working on a project for a long time, you want to make sure you've got your work saved and backed up. You can do Control Shift S. See the autosave actually created a second file here. But if you want to make sure you got your work saved up, change this to 2, and then you've got multiple saves there. The autosave feature can be really handy, but it can also override work you might not want it to save in the first place. You might be working on a test, and then the auto feature just saves, and it saves over something you didn't want to actually save, or you didn't want to keep. Also, just saving copies of your work is a great way to have a history for yourself, so you can check out what you've done in the past. Sort of just making a history of your work as you go along. It can be a great way to see how far you've come along. And also, it just dates your work too, so you can actually see what day you worked on what. So if you want to go back to something you worked on a certain day, you can do that. So the next bit of advice I see a lot of people suffer with is naming your layers and naming your objects. You might think you can keep a track of it all as you go along, and you might be able to for a while. If you have projects with like 40 layers and then you have hundreds or thousands of objects, it can be virtually impossible to remember everything, especially if you go away for a week or a month, or you're working on some other project and then you come back to what you're working on previously. You'll have to study your own work again to just start working on what you've already done in the past. So just like, for example, just double click on the layer up here. You can rename it, so I'll just call it box. That's what it is. And also I'll just create a folder, put the box into the folder, and then you can have this be like boxes. And the same goes for symbols and objects. If I want to turn this into a symbol here, I can convert to symbol. You get this little option up here. A lot of people just leave this as symbol, and it's not a good idea. Unless you don't know exactly what you're working on at the time, but even still, you can name it something else. So I'll just name this box 01. Okay, so if I just go up to the library section up here, you'll actually see I've got the box here. When you have hundreds or thousands of symbols here, which I have had, it can get really difficult to find what you're looking for. So it is really handy to name your objects and your layers. It's not only helpful for you, but it will also help anyone else who's seeing your work, whether it be clients, the public, colleagues. If you're just doing a test or something, you might think it's okay to get away with it, but it's just a great habit to get into. If you just keep naming things symbols, you'll forget to do it later on down the line, and then it can be a pain to try and remember to do it after you've set the habit of not naming things and not caring. So the next tip I have is to increase your undo and redo limit. So you go up to Edit, Preferences, Edit Preferences, and you'll get the General tab up here. You'll see Undo. You can change it from Document Level Undo or Object Level Undo. I like to keep it on Document Level Undo, but you may want to change this depending on your preferences. And you'll have your undo limit here, so it has 100 levels. I'd like to increase it to the max. Autocorrect cover here, you can actually select this to be 1 minute all the way up to 1,440 minutes. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but that's interesting. I find 10 minutes or 5 minutes pretty good, depending on what you're working on. If you're working on a big project, you might want to save often, but also if it's taking a long time to save, then you might want to increase it to 10 minutes or something like that. You can change the UI theme here if you're for more of a darkest theme, the light theme, the lightest theme. I prefer the dark theme or the darkest theme. Both of them are pretty good. It can depend on your room lighting. If your room lighting is quite bright, dark can seem pretty good. But if you're working at night or something like that, which I recommend to have some lights around if you are, the darkest can be pretty good. You can change a few other things here with the UI settings, but I'll just leave it like this for starters. Okay, my next bit of advice would just be to make copies of your symbols if you're going to be editing them. I've been working on some really complex symbols at times, and then I want to change one little thing, and if I do, I might not be able to get it back to how it was. So if I'm doing a test, I'll actually copy a symbol and then use it as a test. So I'll actually copy a symbol like so. If I right click and go duplicate symbol, you'll get a new window pop up and you'll get the name of the symbol here and then copy. You can change this to whatever you want. I don't mind this if I'm just doing a test and I want to come back to it or change the original from this. But if you are going to actually keep both of them, or you just wanting to duplicate it for a different reason, you can just do name it box 2 or whatever the name of your object is, and change the number. Or if you're doing like a right and left arm, you can do left arm. If you're copying the right arm and you're going to do like left arm, you can do that with this. Simply just change the name and then edit the symbol once it's copied. You'll see on the library here, I've actually have the second symbols popped up here. If you do duplicate the symbol and right click, and then this box comes up, when you select OK, this symbol will actually convert to the second symbol here. If you want to change that, go back to what it was originally, go to the property section here, and you actually have your options here, and you'll actually see box 2, so you'll actually see the name of the symbol you selected here, right here. If you want to switch this symbol with another symbol, just do swap symbol here. And the library of all your symbols will pop up here. As for right now, it's just 2, so it's pretty basic. I want to switch this back to box 1. Okay, you can't really tell the difference, but this actually is box 1. If I pull out box 2, put that here, you can see if I actually double click on this, I can edit it. So you can edit the symbol by just double clicking on it. If I remove this section, say for example, you can see it actually doesn't change this first symbol here. If I was to remove this symbol now, remove the box 2, then place in another box 1. If I do the exact same with this, double click, select the part I want to remove. If I remove this, it actually remove it on both symbols because they are the same symbol. And same goes for this box over here. If I delete this section, it'll actually remove it off this box. So because I don't want to do that, I'll just put that back. If you want to get out of the editing part, just double click on the blank part of the stage you're not using. So if I go back to the property section, you can see both these are box 1. So I want to swap this box again with box 2. I'm going to just go up to the property section, click this icon over here. This box will pop up. You can select the symbol that you want to switch with. So I want to do box 2. So I'll just remove box 2 for the minute. So if I want to make an edit to this box, but I'm not really sure if I want to save it, I can duplicate the symbol. Right click on it, go down to duplicate symbol. This box will pop up again. If I want to just do box 01 copy, if I'm just going to do a test, click OK. That'll pop up here. You don't really want to have your library filled with symbol name plus copy, because you'll get name here, copy 1 to 72. You'll have your whole library filled with stuff like that. You don't really want to do that. I recommend just doing it for things you want to back up or do tests with. So for example, if I want to go edit this and just do a few things, I want to mess around with this box, double click on it. I've got the free transform tool up here, which is Q. So I just press Q on the keyboard. You can actually pull down the corners, make a sort of diamond shape, I guess. I can actually rotate it if I want. But if I don't actually want to save that, if I want to go back to the actual box, but I want to keep the dimensions, or you're working on something that's more complicated than just a box, and you want to go back to what you were working on, you can go back to the original symbol you had before and you just made a copy of. So you want to go, if you want to go back to replacing it, just go back to the properties menu, select the swap symbol tool over here, pulls up your library again, and you just go back to the original symbol you're working on. And then if you're not happy with the results, or if you don't want to keep this symbol anymore, just go down to here and you'll have the delete option. So if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions or want some advice. Got some more tutorials coming on the way, so subscribe if you want to see some more animation and see some more tutorials to learn more. This video is just a basic sort of starting video. I'll have more videos on the way, showing off some more advanced things and show some of my animation or other creative things.